Hi, I think I need y'all to help me interpret this dream because it was wild and not necessarily in a positive sense. In this dream, there were two men who were escaping by car from a camp. A sea camp. One of those camps like the one that's just been built in Florida. And these two men were leaving their families behind. I remember seeing the wives of the two men, and they were driving along a short road, and then there was a sort of a ramp or bridge going over the water, and they drove on this bridge, and as I saw them I realized what was going to happen, and then I witnessed it. They just went sideways and fell into the water. And I was, of course, really scared. And I thought, oh no, they're going to drown. They're going to die. And then something happened. I wasn't in my human size. I was much, much bigger. And I reached out for their car, which was going down into the sea. It was this pitch black sea. I think it was night. And I lifted the car up with one finger. Yeah, I just lifted the car with one finger like I was a giant being. And while I was doing that, I realized I might have just made a great mistake, because those two men were kissing while jumping into the sea. And so I realized they had decided to do that as the only way out. But they were also in love, probably, if they were kissing on their mouth. And the wives were watching while I was lifting the car up, and they were still like that, and everyone was realizing what was going on. And then I woke up. And then I started to think, what the hell does this mean? And I haven't understood it yet, and I need your help here. Because why a giant me? My ego is not like that. A giant version of me can only be my higher self. Because, I'm not like that. And then my higher self was saving two men who were escaping and fell or jumped into the water. But then my higher self, or was it this version of me that realized the mistake? And also, my higher self knows everything, right? She wouldn't do no mistakes. It is not like me here having no clue what's going on. My higher self knows everything. That is our divine selves. And so if my higher self knows everything and she was picking these men up, she was saving them, then who was realizing that was a mistake? The human version of me? Does it mean that it's full of mosquitoes here? Does it mean that my higher self knew that they needed to be saved? Isn't that interfering with their choices? And then, why do I keep picking up energy that comes from the US? I'm not living in the US. So what I'm thinking is this a way for my higher self to tell me that space has no meaning? It doesn't mean anything. It's just a parameter that our brains use to make sense of things. Although in certain situations, like when energy is involved, space really doesn't matter. And so I'm picking up the collective energy, and it doesn't matter if it comes from the US or it's here in Europe, because it's just the same thing, because space is not a thing as far as energy is regarded. But then what about the two men wanting to unalive themselves as their only way out, their only way of being free again, but leaving the wives behind? Does this mean that sometimes we are meant to witness what is happening, but we are not always asked to intervene? I'm not saying maybe we shouldn't intervene with what is going on in the sea camp. There might be situations in life where we think we need to help and we must help, but if we do, we are interfering with the personal choices of the other person. I don't know why I had that dream. I don't know, I felt really sorry for those two men, and I felt frustrated with myself for wanting to help them when they maybe didn't want to be helped. Maybe they wanted to go that way. They did it on purpose. It wasn't an accident. And I'm just trying to understand what this might mean So why I had this dream? Because I truly believe that every dream that I have and we have are there for a reason. They're not just a mix of things that happen during the day and we mix them up in the night. No, this dream meant something, and me being there helping them out and then realizing I shouldn't have done that, maybe that was really confusing. And maybe the lesson is in understanding why that feels so confusing. And that's also why I need your help, because I don't understand this dream. Why did I dream about the sea camp? Maybe because I'm shocked for the fact that there is a sea camp in Florida, or anywhere really. Why these two men fleeing? Maybe they wanted freedom. Maybe this is a cry for freedom, for stopping oppression, and that makes sense. Why were they leaving their wives behind? I have no idea. Why were they kissing each other while falling into water? What does that mean in the grand scheme of this crazy dream? I have no idea. So if you want to try and help me, you're very welcome.